way. Jon Eng starting with the Manaphy. Pedro Pertusi starting with the Lugia. And it looks like Pedro is going first and discards the Archeops on turn 1. This is what you want to do as the Lugia player when you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to be feeling very happy about that. Able to, look through the deck, look through and see what's prized, and get out another basic. Maybe just get down that second Lugia just to, just have it in reserve. But like you said, most importantly, getting that first Archeops in the discard pile, very important.
One of the best options for the Lugia player going second is to try to Marnie the Lugia player going first. And if Pedro can take this turn, take this opportunity to try to get at least one Archeops down, which we've seen is able to happen, that is good. If you can get 2 Archeops down, then you're going to be able to withstand that Marnie much, much better on the next turn.
Yeah, because then at that point, all you need to find is one evolution and send, so one out to the Lugia VSTAR, and you evolve, use the power, you're good to go.
And that's the thing about Lugia, though. It is not the most consistent when it's going first, right? You don't get to play a supporter on your first turn, so it is a little bit to ask in order to get all of those pieces down. But Pedro already setting up pretty nicely. The Lugia in the active. Looks like Quick Ball does grab another Lugia. Sometimes we'll see players, when they go first in the Lugia mirror match, only choose to go with the one Lugia route, but Pedro does bench the second one, which I think is good as well.
Yep, and it does have the first energy attachment as well, which is also nice. Double turbo going on to the active. But is there going to be anything else? No, maybe Pedro just passing after that. So over to Jon now. Can he get as good a setup as Pedro did?
And it's looking a little tougher. I don't see... Looks like supporter for turn is Serena, which is certainly less than ideal. And there's an Ultra Ball in hand, but no Archeops to discard.
Yeah, that's really not great. You want to really be, discarding an Archeops with your first or second Ultra Ball, but it looks like instead it's going to be Ultra Ball discarding Choice Pilot Double Turbo.
Those are 2 very important cards as well.
Yeah, those are cards you absolutely don't want to discard. Very important to, get yourself up to that energy cost fulfillment, and also for the choice belt to get rid of that V-Guard energy that's so common in these Lugia decks. So losing one so early on hurts.
And I think the reason for that is that the other cards in Jon's hand are just kind of too good. It looks like there's the Serena there, which is his only way to draw as of now, unless he gets something else off this Ultra Ball, like a Luminion potentially, but it does appear like Lugia will be the choice. And I think the other 2 options in the hand were 2 powerful colorless energy, and I think that is an important piece when you're going second in the mirror, trying to be able to have as many of those as possible so you can reach for big knockouts on Lugia V-Star, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Obviously the cards that Jon discarded were important, but the cards that he didn't discard were more important, and these are kind of the tough decisions that you have to take into account when you're, well, in any match, but especially so in like a top 8 game and there's so much on the line.
Winning one of these tournaments is never easy, and these decisions so far have not been easy for Jon. Already just 1 action into the game. Shuffling the deck, it looks like Serena will have to be the choice if this is the grab. The Lugia being Ultra Balled out, and have to imagine it will be benched as well.
Yes, so now for Jon, gonna... Yeah, I mean, having the Manaphy down at first is not really a great starter. At least it only has a retreat cost of 1, but it's not something that you really want to put down unless you know for a fact that your opponent is playing Raikou, and that isn't always a guarantee. So could be like perhaps an awkward bench spot wasted there in this instance. But it looks like, yeah, going to attach the energy, Serena, discard the Collapse Stadium, and draw 4 cards.
Collapse can be a great card in this matchup as well, limiting your opponent's bench, especially when you're going second.
Yeah, of course. With the fact that you have to dedicate 2 bench slots to Archeops, and if you're not able, if you have, 1 bench slot removed, then that means you're less flexible with your other attackers when you get those 2 Archeops out.
We're back on Pedro's turn. Jon able to just get the 1 Lugia. This is a big opening for Pedro. I think if Pedro can find the boss's orders or Serena this turn to bring up this Lugia V and KO it, that might just be all they need to win the game.
Won't be the first time we've seen that on stream either. We've seen it before. Just bring up the 1 Lugia, attack, scoop, and I'm sure that's probably what will happen if Pedro is able to pull this off.
And Pedro has to ask the question: is it worth digging for this play? And it looks like the answer right now is yes. Being aggressive, grabbing this Crobat out of the deck with that excellent dark asset ability. When you play it from your hand onto the bench, you get to fill your hand up to 6 cards.
Yeah, he sees the opportunity there. He knows he needs to seize upon it. You can put down that Radiant Charge off a good measure, and I believe it's going to be the dark asset for the full 6 as well, as long as he commits his choice belt, which, yeah, just put down the Radiant Charizard. You don't need this KO Lugia right now, so put down something else.
6 cards.
6 cards on a dark asset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does he get everything he needs to pull off the combo?
I think we need a Lugia and a boss. Those are the missing pieces here, and I see the Ultra Ball there in hand, I think, in order to get the Lugia, but is there a Serena or boss?
Wait, there's a Quick Ball. He can grab Luminion.
He could grab Luminion, but the problem with that is that then you would only have space for 1 Archeops on your bench.
Ah, yes.
But I wonder if it's almost worth it to do that, because you could grab the necessary energy out of the deck. You could still go boss's orders, KO this just Lugia on Jon's bench, and you would be so far ahead.
I think by pure virtue of the fact that it enables you to KO the Lugia, I think I have to agree that yes, it is worth it. And I think that that's something that Pedro's probably thinking about, maybe why he was hesitating a little bit before going for it, but probably coming to the same realization and thinking, yes, it doesn't actually matter if I only get one Archeops out. If I'm carrying my opponent's only Lugia, then that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
And that just puts you so far ahead because you can keep being aggressive after Lugia's turn after turn after turn. And I think this is the play Pedro must be going for. Yeah. Luminion brought to the front. Let's see, Boss or Serena is the grab.
I mean, you've got to think it is, right? It's right there on the table. There it is. Yes, Luminion, Luminicine does grab the Lugia off of the bench, and then we're going to see the Summoning Star for the one Archeops. Jon not conceding yet, interestingly enough, so maybe thinking he can pull himself back from this, but you've got to think it's pretty awkward, right?
It is definitely tough, but I think the reason Jon feels like he could come back from this is because Pedro only has one Archeops in play. If you can make some moves around that, if you can get a Lugia on the bench, and Jon also can know that the fact that Pedro had to use Luminion to get Serena means there's not one in the hand. And because there is not one in the hand, Jon knows that if he can find another Lugia this turn, it's pretty unlikely Pedro will be able to knock it out. So there's a chance he's a couple turns away from getting a Lugia.
Yeah, or maybe at the very least wanting to see one more card as well. But no, yeah. There it is. So Jon with no answer to that, scoops up his cards, and Pedro wins a very, very quick game one, and we're going on to game two.
Wow, that was a super quick one. Jon conceding the game. Played it out for one more turn, wanted to see if he could draw an out. I think if he had gotten a Lugia out, or maybe...
Probably to grab an Archeops, I would imagine. And in a reversal of fortunes, it looks like this time it's Pedro's the one who's starting with the Manaphy rather than Jon.
The opposite for players. It's almost the same game. We've just flipped sides, right?
Yeah,
the player going first starts Lugia. The player going second starts Manaphy. And we talked about this before the match, though. It is good to have a one-prizer active whenever you're the player going second in this mirror.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing that, provides a little bit of a buffer. It means that it forces your opponent to have some kind of gusting effect to KO a Lugia, say if there's only one out. So obviously, if there's two out, you don't mind as much. But sacrificing a one-prizer early on just favors your prize trade a lot better. So it's really not that much of an issue.
Jon just going to take a moment to check those prizes, make sure he knows exactly what's available, what's not, what is around, and what he has to hope to take later on. Got a quick peek at that hand. He did have the Lugia VSTAR, so that'll be very good for turn 2. We'll see, though, if Pedro has that Marnie for turn 1. Yeah,
you got to imagine if he does, he's going to slam it down, right? You want to disrupt that setup as much as possible. And what I'm very interested to see here is, does Jon have a way to discard this Archeops? I don't recall. Did you see one in the hand earlier?
I didn't quite get a good enough look. It does look like there's an Ultra Ball there.
Okay, there we go.
That's but good. What to discard? There's also a Quick Ball, so maybe that'll just be the play for now.
Yeah, maybe just might be better to go for that instead. Although, if you go for Ultra Ball, you could Ultra Ball for another Archeops and then Quick Ball.
That would be really strong, but Jon is debating giving up the Manaphy here. That can be an important card. Raikou is a little bit of a threat, but if you can just manage your bench, it's okay. As long as you don't keep anything on the bench that has 120 HP, and hope your opponent can't pull off the boss's orders play onto an Archeops and then KO something like the amazing Yveltal.
And I think in this instance as well, going back to something you were saying earlier, it's more important to sort of guarantee that you have the Archeops in discard power, right?
Yes.
Jon is now able to get both of them in there, and now even if Pedro Marni's, like you were alluding to earlier, Jon doesn't need to find as much to get the setup going still.
Yes, exactly what Jon, I think, is thinking, why he's deciding to go a little harder for this and discard a potentially useful resource in the Manaphy. It's not the biggest deal, let's say, but it could certainly come up, certainly something I think he would like to keep around. It is worth noting, Jon probably, I would say, has the maximum greed list when it comes to consistency. He's only playing 3 Lugia V. He's only playing 3 Archeops as well, so he's really kind of just trying to value some of these other techs, maybe trying to find the consistency in other places. It looks like he has maybe a few more copies of some of these supporter cards than other players may. There's 3 Marnies in this list, 3 Serena, and a boss as well.
And also, very interesting to note, 2 Lost Vacuum as well. I think it's the highest Lost Vacuum count that we've seen in the Lugia deck so far.
Yeah, most of the time we've seen 2 Collapsed Stadium, 1 Lost Vacuum. Jon is playing the inverse there, 2 Lost Vacuum and the 1 Collapsed.
Maybe sort of fearing that big parasol, thinking maybe there would be a lot of Arceus Duraludon around during the course of this tournament.
And there wasn't a 0 amount of that deck. There was some of it. Jon is debating, I think, benching a Crobat using that Dark Asset here. I think it would get 4 cards, so it seems like he thinks it's worth it.
Yeah, and some pretty decent ones as well. Finds, is that an evolution? No, it's a Lost Vacuum, but does find the Ultra Ball, although it does already have a Lugia VSTAR in hand. But either way, pretty decent hand. So over to Pedro. How does he answer Jon's lone Lugia start?
Step 1 is find a Lugia. That is for sure. And I also think when you're the player going second, you really want to get 2 Lugia on the bench so that you can hopefully withstand the onslaught of a boss's orders or Serena.
Yeah, now, I got to be honest, I see a quick ball, I see a discard. That discard doesn't look like an Archeops to me.
It is not an Archeops. That is indeed a double turbo energy, which is not a fun card to discard. Double turbo is really useful in this deck because it allows you to get energy on your Lugia a little quicker to start attacking more easily. It's useful again on the Eviltal, it's useful on the Radiant Charizard, and it's one of your best ways to retreat your Pokemon around. Many of the Pokemon in this deck have to retreat, so if you want to pivot around a Lugia, potentially double turbo is a great way to do that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so that would be one of the ones that Pedro plays down. I'd be interested to see how many actually plays in total, because we've seen some of us play 3, some of us play 2. It's like, okay, it is 3 there, so still 2 left to Pedro over the course of this game, so maybe not the end of the world in that regard.
Definitely not, and that high count of that key energy card is certainly going to pay off, I think, here for Pedro, the fact that he's able to discard one and not feel too upset about it. Now, Lugia V has hit the bench. This is step 1 for Pedro. I think he would definitely love to find another Lugia, but he is the player going second, so that means he has the opportunity to potentially play a supporter card, and hey, there you go, there's that second Lugia.
Just had it in hand, no worries to one, another double turbo for good measure, so oh wow, look at that.
Crobat for 5 cards, had 1 remaining in hand, almost the perfect 6. Still has not played a supporter, so there are more cards yet to be drawn in this one.
Yeah, and I imagine Pedro's probably going to be digging for that Marnie, right? Because thinking, yeah, sure, Jon, you've already got 2 Archeops in the discard pile, but I mean, maybe I can shuffle away a Lugia, but nope, just the pass.
Oh, and Jon top decks the Serena. That is absolutely massive. He did not have a way to gust in hand, and let's not forget his Lumineon is in the prize cards.
It's an absolutely massive draw there for Jon, as now he will be able to take the first 2 prize knockout and just play around the fact that Pedro started with 1 prizer. That is absolutely huge.
So Pedro's done something kind of interesting here. He spread out the energy and the choice belts, and certainly one is more valuable than the other. As Jon, if you have the option to take out either the choice belt or the double turbo energy, which do you think is the better option?
I think what you can do is what Jon's looking at here. You're attaching the V-Guard energy, so surely you take out one with the choice belt, because that is one less choice belt that can then punch for your V-Guard energy.
Absolutely, that makes a ton of sense, and the double turbo is stuck on that Lugia. It is going to be reducing the damage.
Yeah, so that's much less of a threat in the grand scheme of things, because you're not scared of being able to power it up, you're scared of being KO'd yourself.
Now, I will say something that does open up is Pedro can send up the Lugia, and if he can get the Archeopsis down, get the Lugia VSTAR, and find that amazing rare Eviltal, that would be great. Oh, yes, but wasn't that in the prize cards as well?
Yes, it was.
So this is definitely looking really tough for Pedro. The fact that Jon is going to be able to get this Serena KO, take out this Lugia, has to be the one with the choice belt, I would imagine. Like you mentioned, it just seems so good in this spot.
Yeah, and even better because owing to the... Oh? Yeah, so owing to the situation that, of course, the Velta's prize, which Jon doesn't necessarily know, but that makes that play even better in that regard, because it's playing around so many of the outs that Pedro has to KO you.
So here's another interesting play. I just noticed a card in Jon's hand. He does have one of his 2 Lost Vacuum available, so something else he could do would be Serena after the Lugia with the energy and Lost Vacuum, that choice belt, targeting both of those key pieces at the same time.
You know, if you think you want to get rid of one or the other, why not get rid of both?
Now, there's a chance that there are too many cards in Jon's hand that he doesn't want to Lost Zone. It looks like a decent amount of energy, so we may not see the Lost Vacuum, because I think Serena KO, the one with the choice belt, is a good enough play anyways.
It is, but but actually basically going for it. I mean, you currently Lost Zone that I believe was an Ultra Ball in Jon's hand. That one you can probably get rid of. You've got all your standard Pokemon at this point. You don't really need anymore necessarily.
And Jon also knows that Lumineon is prized, so he could be thinking there's a chance he takes it off his prizes here.
Yeah, but he is umming and ahhing about it. And yep, Serena gonna bring up the one with the double turbo energy. That to me says, yeah, you're gonna Lost Vacuum actually gets rid of double turbo energy, and use that to get rid of the choice belt. So yeah, 2 for 1.
Yeah, what a massive play here for Jon Eng, taking out an energy and that damage boosting tool all in one blow. This is looking rough for Pedro. Pedro does not even have a single Archeops in the discard pile yet.
That is absolutely devastating, and Pedro really nothing going for him. Not even much going on in the hand as far as I can see. He didn't play a supporter last turn, as I recall, right?
So did not play a supporter, and I don't know if I noticed one there. It looks like a decent amount of energy. He's holding it just off the screen. I think there is an Ultra Ball, though. It looks like that's what he's debating here, which this could grab out that Lumineon.
Yeah, there is an Ultra Ball. There's also a Lugia VSTAR as well, so it has the evolution ready to go. But this Ultra Ball, again, is just not discarding an Archeops.
Not discarding an Archeops, so that means that is even more that Pedro is going to need to find. Luminion might just have to dump the hand here. Sometimes you've got to just see that this hand is not going anywhere for you. Research, let's draw 7 more and see if we can find something better to work with.
Now we're talking about, you know, Jon Eng's list being sort of maximum greed. What's the greed level on Pedro's list here? How many Archeops we're talking? It looks like it's a 4-free line of Lugia, but then 3 Archeops. So yeah, also going for the 3 Archeops count might make it a bit more of a struggle to find these even off of a Professor's research.
Yeah, and not only finding them, finding a way to discard them in addition. And there have been quite a few search cards played that normally would be doing the discarding, the Ultra Balls and the Quick Balls. It is still possible. There's a chance you can play to those outs. I mean, we've got plenty of time here in this match. So yeah. Pedro's going to play it out, go with that Luminion, certainly far from over. We'll see what he can make happen.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to whether he's able to find this out to discard the Archeops is right. If he doesn't, then, I mean, Jon can take another 2-price knockout, and at that point, you know, Pedro, again, might as well just concede, right? So it's really going to be a huge 7 cards off this Professor's research.
Now, Pedro does have that Lugia VSTAR in hand as we see that being evolved right now. You could use Summoning Star before the research to pull some energies out of the deck. Oh, but that is a lot of energies going down to the discard already off of the research.
Yeah, and again, no Archeops in there. So,
of course.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's the whole point, of course. There's no ability to use the Summoning Star to bring up the Archeops if they're not around to be brought back. But that does not look like a good start
Ultra Ball.
Pedro.
It looks like 1 Archeops in there. Okay.
Okay, so is it Ultra Ball discarding an Archeops? Okay, so now you can get another one, and there's a Quick Ball in the hand as well. Okay. So actually, that means he's done it.
He's found the pieces. Wow, that is very impressive because it was, I mean, it's a pretty specific combo of cards that he needs to find to make this happen.
Yeah, so he's got to be pretty happy about that. Breathing a sigh of relief, perhaps. Now, Quick Ball, it's going to be interesting to see who grabs off this. He can't really put anything down because he needs to save those last 2 bench spots, of course, for the 2 Archeopses. Maybe he's going to grab an attacker for later.
And something worth noting here as well, there's no bench space for any sort of alternate attacker. The only option really is to attack with this active Lugia, and you can't one-hit KO your opponent's active. It's got the V-Guard energy, your choice belt's gone. I think a powerful color's already hit the discard pile, so one-hit KO is just totally out of the question. Yeah. So we're going to have to go for a 2-hit KO line.
A 2 KO line, and then also, but he has to do it in a way where he makes sure that he doesn't get just 1 shot right back, because if he does, then yeah, this game is like near enough over anyway. So especially with no backup attacker to follow up with. And
Luminion and Crobat being easy targets on the bench for Jon to attempt to close the game out.
Yeah, really bad. Back against Wolf and Pedro. Still doing as much as he can to pull himself back into this game, but really not gonna be happy with his current position. So the first Primal Turbo does get fired off, and he's looking through to see what energy he has access to determine what the best combination of energies to put onto his Lugia is going to be. And it looks like it's going to be a double turbo plus a powerful colorless energy, and then going to have to do 1 more Primal Turbo to get that last energy on to meet the cost for Tempest Dive.
Yep, needs 1 more energy. Hasn't attached for turn yet either, so if there's 1 in hand, that would also work.
It sure would, and there it is, the V-Guard energy, very, very important that gets attached. So now Jon's going to have to work a little bit harder to find the pieces to KO, maybe just find his own choice belt, but in the meantime, just Tempest Dive for not a knockout.
And this is the type of turn that it is great to go for that Yveltal, I feel like, and Jon does have the Quick Ball in hand already. This is such a good turn. Take out this Lugia with the V-Guard energy. Don't worry about having to stack all your powerful colorless onto a Lugia in order to get there for the KO.
Yeah, it's going to be a matter of he's going to look for his deck just to make sure that he has enough energy in the deck to pull this off. But if he does, I'm sure he's going to go for it. And there it is. We see the Yveltal being brought to the top of the deck and even just getting the energy ready from the Primal Turbo already.
Making sure that he has them available. I do believe there is an Aurora in hand. So with 2 Aurora in deck and the double turbo, it is able to be pulled off. Also, that heat fire energy can satisfy one of the energy costs.
Yeah, unlike some of the special energies that are specific types from before, the heat fire and all that whole range can provide the cost for the attack, even if it's attached to a non-fire Pokemon. It just doesn't provide the other effect.
Yes, it is still a fire energy, but the fact that Yveltal is not a fire Pokemon means it does not gain plus 20 hit points, as Yveltal has now come down 5 energies on this Pokemon. Out of absolutely nowhere, Jon Eng can retreat this Lugia to the bench. And now I guess the question becomes for Jon, which are the 2 best energy to discard in order to retreat? He's got 4 different ones on there. I think the Capture is an obvious one, but between the other ones, which one's best to lose?
I think it's going to be the V-Guard energy, right? At this point, you have so much damage on you, there's not much point keeping it on you because you're not going to be able to protect enough to get to prevent yourself being KO'd. So yeah, I think the V-Guard's the easy choice here.
Sensible choice indeed. Jon goes for the Marnie, putting Pedro to a limited hand size, adding that in addition to everything he's already got going for him. trying to just find maybe the boss or Serena for the next turn to close the game out.
Yes, and I'm sure that's. I'd like to finish this game as quickly as possible, and it seems like John agrees with the line of play. Right, it's going to be a discard of the V Guard and the Capture Energy, bring up the Veltal, and an amazing. Was it not amazing destruction?
Amazing destruction.
Yes, amazing destruction. 5 energy attack cost. Your opponent's active is knocked out, and that in Pedro's instance means your Lugia is gone.
Yes, Lugia to the discard pile. 2 prizes to John. He's just debating thinning a little bit here. Makes sense to me. Might as well do that in preparation for a potential disruption card on Pedro's side. Grab that Radiant Charizard. Probably just leaving it in the hand. I don't think you want to bench anything else really right now. Could throw it down, I guess, if you wanted to promote it, but there's not too many energies left in John's deck, so he's got to be mindful of that.
Yeah, he does. And of course, I guess the other thing to be mindful of is maybe he could have prepared a bench spot free for a Luminion play. I know he doesn't have access to it right now, but maybe he's thinking he can take it off his prize cards.
Right, he's got 4 prizes remaining. He knows Luminion is in there. He's going to take 2 of them. There's a 50-50 chance that Luminion is one of the prizes he grabs.
Yeah, unfortunately, we know that it's unlikely that that's going to be one of the ones that he gets. And that's it, Pedro concedes.
Yeah, Pedro sees the writing on the wall, recognizes that John's position is just going to be too strong. Can't come back from that Evil Tall, and
that is really what separates the goods from the grades. I couldn't agree more.
Prize cards going down. Pedro has prized one of his 3 Archeops and also the Crobat, and once again, Jon Eng has Luminion in the prizes.
And again at the top as well, right where it's most unlikely to be taken. Now that's unbelievable.
Super unfortunate for John and for Pedro, honestly. Both of those prizes are a little awkward, but we'll see how they can navigate, how they can work through those situations. We're getting into Game 3 here in Top 8. Pedro Pertusi will be going first, and he has started a Lugia and is kicking the game off with an Evolution Incense. Love to see it.
And again, in another almost reflection of the previous games, it's slightly different this time. There is a Lugia against a single prizer, but actually for John it's a bit more awkward because that is that Pumpkaboo start.
Yes, that Pumpkaboo with the Pumpkin Pit ability, something we've seen from a decent amount of the Lugia players in order to have an out to things like Path to the Peak, which can be really detrimental to you. A decent amount of players have actually decided to cut Pumpkaboo for their deck lists this weekend, but John and his testing group decided it was worthwhile. Of course, he and Isaiah Bradner were on the same 60, Isaiah getting top 16, John here still fighting it out in top 8.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate start with because, of course, you want to have the flexibility to get rid of stadiums with the Pumpkin Pit, but at the same time, it's a one that you're okay like leaving forward, where we talked about how in Game 1 that Pedro was okay with having that Manaphy in the lead just to absorb a hit, but then unfortunately John, of course, did draw the Serena for turn and kind of rendered that point moot.
So Pedro is grabbing the Archeops, but did not go back into the deck, and that is because the way we're discarding the Archeops is through the Aurora Energy attachment. It provides 1 energy of every type, but of course only 1 energy at a time. But when you attach it from your hand to one of your Pokemon, you have to discard a card from your hand, and it synergizes so well with something like Archeops, which you just want to get into the discard pile.
Yeah, Aurora Energy fits so well, both providing all the different colored attack costs for all the attackers you have, but then also, as you said, something like double utility of being able to discard random things you don't really want in your hand, or things you very specifically want in the discard pile, like Archeops.
John's hand is a little awkward. There's a couple quick balls, and he's starting off with 1 here, and I think this is where he's going to learn that Luminion is unfortunately prized. He does have access to the Crobat, so there is still a way that one of these quick balls can become a live draw out for him.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're John, you're probably thinking, wait, seriously, Luminion again?
We've already been through this once.
Exactly. Why you got to do it like this to me again?
Well, it seems like Luminion just likes to hide up in the prize cards, and it's a little unfortunate for John. He is going to take a moment to check, though. With 2 quick balls, he should be in a decent spot. He'll have an opportunity to get 2 Lugias down, which, as the player going second, you really want to do. The big question for me is going to be, is there a Marnie? That is something we have yet to see from either of these players, putting their opponent to as few cards as possible before they're able to play a supporter. Yeah,
and especially in this instance as well, because Pedro's only able to get 1 Archeops down, the Marnie would be sort of more effective than ever. So I think if John can find it, he absolutely would. And I think it's also one of the reasons why he's very lamenting, especially now, the Luminion being prized, because if he could just go for that straight away and guarantee the Marnie, that would be amazing. But not an option available to him, unfortunately.
Does find that second Lugia exactly what you want to see. So that way, even if Pedro does bring up one of them with a boss or Serena, there is still another option to get the Summoning Star VSTAR power activated on the next turn. Now we'll see if John, in this remaining 3 cards, is there a supporter? It does look like there is. It's not a Marnie, though. It is going to be a research, and it's going to be a pretty clean research as well. We see the Gift Energy being attached, the Choice Belt coming down as well. Maybe John now thinking about spreading this out, similar to how Pedro did in the last game, but it will just all go onto 1, and Research will draw 7 cards.
Yeah, and I think in this instance, it's a kind of, it doesn't matter as much. Losing the Choice Belt is unfortunate, but when the Gift Energy Pokemon gets knocked out, of course, you get to draw until you have 7 cards in hand. So it's not like, it's almost like a bait, right? It's saying, okay, you're giving my Choice Belt, but you're going to give me extra cards if you do.
So we're in Game 3 here in our top 8, but we're getting an update that all of the other matches happening out in the field are all still in their Game 1. You can just see how high octane this game has been for both players. Both have been setting up as ideally as possible, getting everything that they need in order to pull off their strategies when they've been going first, and that has led to these quick games.
Yeah, and I mean, in Lugia matchup, the Lugia mirrors, we've seen it kind of go both ways, right? Sometimes they go really fast like this, and sometimes it's more of a grind, slog fest, just trying to, find the right resources and to sort of punch through like really tough to KO Lugias through with V-Guard engines or the like. But that's not really what we've seen in this top 8 so far.
So Jon is thinking of grabbing the Raikou. We have not seen it from him yet in this match, but in theory it is a super strong card as it can hit the Lugia VSTAR for weakness and also deal damage to a benched Pokemon. And I think he's wanting to grab this because he might want to send this up if this active Pumpkaboo goes down.
Yeah, that's going to be a very good follow-up attacker, right? Especially if Pedro is not able to find a Dunsparce. We know that Jon isn't playing it, but Pedro is. But if Pedro doesn't find that, then it'd be a very nasty free prize on the turn. Knockout could be on the cards.
You're almost forcing Pedro's hand, forcing him to find one more thing this turn. Starting off by putting Manaphy down. That will protect from the Raikou as well. V-Guard Energy coming to the Lugia.
Yeah, definitely good to have that bench protection, and probably you're going to want to get the Dunsparce down as well, just to prevent the weakness from hitting through. Although,
this is tough. It was a Serena was the play for turn, discarded two powerful colorless energies, and just drew quite a few more energies. Pedro has totally lost his advantage of going first, and he's now just going to have to retreat into the Manaphy and pass.
That is an atrocious turn 2, and Jon is just going to be able to...
Oh, he's flying. He's moving so quick already. He knows that this is his opportunity to pounce. His opponent has stumbled. How will he capitalize?
Yeah, I think the one problem here is that, as we already know, the Minion is currently in the prize card, so Jon can't use that to guarantee the Serena, but you've got to be thinking, if you're Jon here, there is absolutely an opportunity for me to just run away with this game.
If Jon can find a Serena or Boss, if he has one in hand or can use Crobat potentially to dig, that could win him this game potentially. He doesn't have it in hand yet. He does have the speed Lightning Energy, which could come down onto the Raikou to draw cards. I don't think we're going to be seeing that, and that is signified by the double turbo going to the Pumpkaboo, and it's going to just be a research. So Jon is not going to be able to capitalize as much as he possibly could have. Yeah,
you got to be breathing a sigh of relief if you're a Pedro right now. You're thinking, that was an absolutely terrible turn 2. I got basically nothing, and my opponent just win the game outright, but in this instance, Jon didn't really have the means to capitalize on it, so Pedro is still in for the shot.
And let's not sell it short. Jon is still definitely in a great spot. The advantage that Pedro had for going first is now pretty much gone. Jon is doing everything he can to try to set up and get as established as possible. That Manaphy in the active is going to protect the Lugia on the bench, so we can't see an amazing shot from the Raikou, but just a hit with Lugia may be good enough.
Yeah, maybe, but there's now another counterplay coming in, right? Because now Jon is forced to KO a single prizer, so if Pedro can take the first 2 prize KO, that might be the way that he can then swing it back in his favor.
And see, that's where this matchup isn't as simple as who goes first wins the coin flip, and we're seeing that play out right here in this spot. Jon takes the first knockout. Pedro draws for turn. Is it anything that can aid him here? Off of that Serena, he drew a bunch of energies. What does he have?
He did also draw Professor's Research, I believe, from the Serena, so that he can at the very least play that and then discard his hand and draw more cards, but that would mean getting rid of a ton of energy, which he really doesn't want to do right now.
Quick Ball ditches that double turbo energy, and Radiant Charizard being brought to the front. There is a chance here for Pedro that he could power up one of those powerful Pokemon like the amazing rare Eviltal or the Radiant Charizard as an attacker here. Jon with that V-Guard energy on the active makes it so you can't really KO it with the Lugia super easily. You would need a Choice Belt and 3 powerful colorless energies.
I mean, I'm sure in an ideal world, Pedro would want to go for the amazing Raikou. I can't recall, he prized it last game, but did he prize it this game as well? I don't think he did.
I don't think it is in the prizes this game, so that would be great if he could find that and also get the Choice Belt necessary.
Yes, because then he could take a knockout on both the active Lugia and Jon's own Raikou to stop him getting Raikou back.
That would be a huge swing here. It's a lot for Pedro to get. How many Archeops are down in his discard pile right now? I think, is it just the 1 copy from earlier, right?
I do believe so, yeah. So, yeah, not quite the ideal setup just yet. So
Pedro would love to find the V-Star, the Choice Belt, the Raikou, and a way to discard another Archeops. It's a tall order, but if he could do it, that would be so strong.
Yeah, and John's looking like a little bit confused, looking through Pedro's discard pile, questioning what's in it.
It looks like it's a question about the energy, potentially. He's talking about the energy cards. Pedro has not attached return or anything like that. That double turbo was the first attachment, so it's no double attach or anything like that. So maybe just a little bit of confusion, but it looks like it was cleared up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you're John and you see that many energy in your opponent's discard pile and the Lugia mirror, you got to be feeling pretty happy, right?
Definitely, and that is one of the downsides of Pedro, having to play the Serena, discard 2 energies, and then having to play Research to discard some energies as well.
Yeah, so gonna debate on this summoning star, does go for it, so it's just gonna be one Archeops, really not ideal, but I guess at this point not really much of a choice otherwise.
At this point it's game 3, it's top 8, you have little choice, little option, you gotta stick it out, you gotta play it out. It is not ideal, but you'll do what you can to try to come back in this game.
And of course, the one Primal Turbo still absolutely will be enough to get this Lugia powered up and doing some kind of damage. No one-hit knockout going to be in play. There's not enough powerful colorless energies around to do that, but at the very least start putting on some counter pressure.
Yeah, through the V-Guard energy, you would have to find 3 powerful colorless energy and a choice belt, and now you would even need the 4th one since there's a double turbo on the active. It's definitely too much to ask for, so Pedro will save all out on the powerful colorless energies. I do think a couple are already in the discard pile actually as well, so none of those plays I think are even going to be available through the course of this game. It's going to have to be a 2-hit KO setup with this first Tempest dive from Lugia VSTAR.
Oh, and something even worse to mention, there is no V-Guard energy on that Lugia, so John only needs 3 powerful colorless energy. No, I don't even that, 2 because of the choice belt to get the KO back.
Yes, and already has 1 available, but Pedro does recognize this, plays the Lost Vacuum, forces John to put a little bit more on this active. Now, John did knock out the Manaphy last turn, so there's a chance that Amazing Shot could come in. If you can find Choice Belt, it would 1-hit KO the active. It won't KO anything on the bench, but it could set it up for where Amazing Shot could win you the game on the next turn, potentially.
It would, although John would need to find another Choice Belt to do that, because of course it's going to need doing 240 currently, which would not quite be enough.
And is just going to go in with the Primal Turbo, does throw the extra 2 powerful colorless energy needed onto this Lugia. It's a big commitment to a Pokemon with so much damage on it, but I think John recognizes that the trade-off is worth it. Yeah,
it's a big commitment. That's absolutely worth it. You're going 3 prizes ahead. It's very unlikely that your opponent can even KO you back anyway, because they need, well, I guess they just need to power up the Radiant Charizard, but even then, that's not going to be a very hard thing to do.
And adding insult to injury, the Marnie adds a layer of disruption to this turn. Jon Eng sending Pedro's hand to the bottom of the deck, and Pedro will be limited to 4 cards on his next turn. Now, John having 5, is there anything else he wants to play here?
I mean, there's a couple of Evolution Incense. You could maybe play some of those to thin out the hand a little bit. Another Aurora Energy. Nothing really too crazy that you mean by want to play now. Maybe just, for the fitting purposes, could maybe grab Archeops and Lugia, because I believe there's 2 Evolution Incenses, so you could go both the Evolution Incenses, grab both of those, and then Ultra Ball them both away just to really thin out the deck.
Yeah, thin the deck as much as possible, and we're seeing John do exactly that. Grab both of these cards, bring them to the hand. Ultra Ball already waited in the hand as well. We do see maybe that, just another quick look through the deck after the Evolution Incense was just played. Ultra Ball now coming down, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, you got 2 Lugia V-Stars out. You really don't need a third one at this point, so may as well discard that as long as well with the extra copy of Archeops. You don't need more than the 2 you have out already.
A few updates as we're waiting on this game. There are a few updates from our other top 8s. Grant Manley is up game 1 over Kian from Canada. Also, Augustin and Lucas are now in game 3. So a few of our top 8 matches, just a few updates, and I think to the surprise of no one, Sander and Tort are still in game 1.
They're probably going to be in game 1 for the rest of the round, let's be honest.
It is entirely possible. Now John will be taking a commanding lead here, going down to just 3 prize cards remaining. Pedro only having the Radiant Charizard, only having the Archeops. It is enough to get off an attack, though, with the Charizard this turn.
Yes, it is. I mean, of course, with John having taken 3 prize cards, the Excited Heart ability, we said that at the same time, didn't we? So the Excited Heart ability going to make it so that the Combustion Blast attack only costs 1 fire and 1 colorless, so 1 Primal Turbo will get the job done there.
And that'll be a way for Pedro to clean up this knockout, and John does not have a great way right immediately to knock out this Radiant Charizard. As long as there's enough energy in the deck, though, this Lugia, of course, could be a great way to close out the damage needed to KO this Pokemon.
It could. As there's more than enough energy in Jon's deck to do it. You know, Pedro's the one with like the energy deficiency currently, so there's also less of a worry there. And I think at this point as well, going for the Lugia is probably better than the Raikou because I don't think you gain that much benefit from like doing the snipe twice. I think you'd rather just attack with something that's more likely to survive a hit.
Seems like Pedro is going with the Charizard, does put the 2 energies necessary on it. Evolution Incense thinning a card out of the deck. Pedro needs a lot of help here. He has yet to take a prize card. He will be taking 2 here, but with only 1 single Archeops in play, this is going to be an incredible uphill battle. It is beneficial to Pedro that there are 3 copies of Double Turbo Energy in this list. That can help to mitigate the fact when you only get 1 Lugia down, so that might be something that Pedro is eyeing up, trying to go for and make sure that he has available, as he has prepped an energy already on the Lugia.
Yeah, so here we go. Combustion Blast does knock out the Lugia VSTAR. Of course, Jon Eng pointing out that the Gift Energy does fire off there, so Jon able to refill the hand a little bit until he has 7 cards. Got to be feeling pretty good about that. It's going to make it a lot easier for Jon to be able to sort of really close out this game and then sort of finalize his grip on the final few prize cards to win and advance into top 4.
Now, as Jon is debating what to send up here, what to promote, we do have one more update from the floor. Sander has defeated Tord in game number 1. So Sander's control deck definitely sitting in an excellent spot to go into a potential top 4 situation. Tord, one of the best players in the world. If there's a way for him to beat that matchup, he'll try to find it.
Yeah, he sure will. I mean, it's a situation he's come up with against as well before in plenty of his situations. But going back to the current game in front of us, Primal Turbo, number 1, getting fired off. Double Turbo finding his way to the Lugia from the deck along with a Heat Fire energy. And then 1 more Primal Turbo just to get powered up. Doesn't really matter what energies you put on Lugia. The Tempest Dive, even after damage reductions, will still be enough to carry the Radiant Charizard.
May even have an energy from hand here, save the Primal Turbo, or use it now onto a different Pokemon if there's something else Jon wanted to put onto the bench here. Try to set up multiple attackers. It's a little awkward to set up too many attackers with the Lugia deck because you don't really want to place your energy preemptively a lot of the times, because sometimes you want to react to what your opponent's doing, and that can make things awkward, right?
Yeah, so you definitely want to avoid that if at all possible. We do see Jon benching his own Radiant Charizard. This is, of course, like the late game attacker for the Lugia deck because with that Excited Heart ability, reducing the attack cost for each prize card your opponent has taken. The later the game goes on, the easier it is to power it up.
So Jon does have Choice Belt in hand, and he may consider putting it onto his own Radiant Charizard. So if Pedro was able to swing into this active Lugia, I mean, obviously the only thing Pedro is really being able to set up with is a potential Lugia V-Star next turn. The Radiant Charizard would be the way to close the game out. He may be worried about a second Lost Vacuum. Jon himself does play 2 Lost Vacuum. I do believe Pedro is only on the 1 copy, and it has been used this game already.
Yeah, and we actually have one more update. Grant has won against Kieran game 2, so Grant wins 2-0 against Kieran Farah and will advance to top 4.
So that means Grant versus Sander. Oh, sorry, Sander's game is still going on. I read our message wrong. Sander wins game 1, not the set, but Grant will be playing against the winner of Sander versus Tord.
Yes, so who else will be joining them in top 4 from this game in front of us? Will it be Pedro or will it be Jon? We do see the knockout on the Radiant Charizard. Pedro comes in with the Lugia and fires off the Primal Turbo, but does he even have like another Lugia V-Star to evolve?
That is the question, and he did discard a Lugia V-Star with the Aurora energy last turn, so I have to imagine if that's what he was doing, there certainly should be one available somewhere. We'll see if he does have it here in the hand, or if he has to fetch it out of the deck potentially.
Yeah, there it is. It's actually, as rightly predicted, it comes down from hand and evolves. Choice Belt plus powerful colors, still not enough to get a knockout. Would need 1 more powerful colors to get there, but I'm guessing doesn't have access to it.
Actually, we need 2 more, right, because of the double turbo. So
oh, yes, you're right.
Can't even do that because Primal Turbo's already been used, so there is no way this active Lugia V-Star is going down. And Jon already kind of flashed that Choice Belt a little bit. He's got it in the hand. So Pedro will take advantage of that potentially and just play the Marnie. Yeah,
Marnie to disrupt as much as possible. Try and stop Jon from having the pieces to close out the game. Try and make this comeback possible, however difficult it may be. That's not even able to take a knockout this turn, though, means that it's going to be a very, very hard time.
So I'm not sure exactly which energies have been utilized for Jon just yet, but as Pedro is launching this attack, it will be doing a decent amount of damage, I believe 250. Jon now drawing for turn. If there are 2 more powerful colorless energy and a Choice Belt remaining, he would be able to just take the KO with this Lugia. If he also just had the Choice Belt and a couple of energies, he could maybe take the KO with the Radiant Charizard. There's several ways he could close this game out.
I do believe that there aren't enough powerful colorless energies available because they were attached to the other Lugia, which got knocked out, of course. So
Sure.
I mean, that one on the active is the last one available. In fact, it doesn't look like there's any more energies left in the deck at all.
That is definitely problematic. There is the one Aurora energy in the hand. If there's truly no energies left in the deck, that could make things a little awkward for Jon. No, there's an Aurora there at least.
Oh, is there one or maybe even two? Oh, yeah, it's two Auroras. Okay, sorry, I stand corrected, but
Yep, it's all good. No worries at all.
And it's actually maybe even a third from what I can see there.
So now Jon debating where to put these energies with the Primal Turbo. It is either an attach to the Raikou, I think, maybe is an option. It could also load them up onto the Charizard, try to dig for the Choice Belt. Potentially, I do believe he has Serena in hand. I think that'll be his way to try and draw cards here. When you're in an advantage like this, the one thing you want to do as Jon, you know, he knows he is far ahead. The one thing you want to do is make sure you don't mess up.
Yes, it's one thing to be in the lead and to capitalize it, but then it's another thing entirely to just throw away that lead due to like a silly misplay or something like that. And I'm sure Jon will be fully aware of that and wanted to avoid that as much as he can. We do see the one commitment of the Aurora onto the Raikou. I think something that's in mind for Jon is that if he commits all the Auroras to the Raikou, that means there's no chance to attack with Charizard later. He kind of has is then all in on that Raikou to finish off the game.
Jon can thin this hand down pretty nicely. There's a Stadium in hand. Serena as well can ditch a few cards and draw. And I think that's going to be the main way to get more cards in the hand here. He left several energies in the deck here. And I think the reason for that is off of this draw, if he draws Choice Belts, he might want to try to win with the Amazing Raikou potentially.
Okay, actually, no, I stand corrected because the fourth Aurora isn't in discard, it's in hand. So actually, no, Jon could absolutely attack with the Raikou and then still attack with the Charizard as long as, you know, there's enough prize cards taken on Pedro's side for the Excited Heart abilities to kick in. Debating
putting that collapsed Stadium in play. It would thin a card out of the hand to get rid of probably just that useless Pumpkaboo. Jon maybe recognizing he's just so far ahead, maybe the best thing for him to do is just swing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's done. Just weaken that Lugia. It's now at the point where an Amazing Raikou attack can just, you know, snipe it on the bench and KO it, and we know for a fact that the mana fee's gone as well.
Yes, and Pedro now drawing for a turn, playing an Evolution Instance. He does play one copy of Sharon's Care, so that's a way that this Lugia could be picked up and this damage could be removed from play. But then the question becomes, what do you attack with after that?
Well, I mean, not much, right, from what Pedro has. I mean, he basically has one Archeops out, and that's it.
Yeah, would have to find something here pretty quickly.
Yeah, as he does look through. There are attackers left in the deck, but not any that can be powered up easily right now, and that's kind of what Pedro needs most right now and doesn't really have it.
So if there's enough energy here for Pedro, if he can find a couple of Auroras and the Amazing Rare Raikou, he could knock out the active and knock out Jon's Raikou on the bench potentially.
That would be pretty ideal, yes. And it looks like, oh, it's going to be Luminion, Luminous Sign to grab a boss's orders.
Interesting enough. Okay. So it doesn't... I don't think we'll be seeing that Sharon's Care then.
No, I think... Is it a matter of I just have to, like, boss and stall?
That might be what he thinks his best play is, especially seeing how Jon didn't get more than one energy with Primal Turbo. That might be what Pedro is playing to. There's a chance that my opponent just has too many energies prized. Retreat this Lugia out of the active. Make it as hard as possible for your opponent to take those last two prizes. Go into this Archeops and just pass. This is all but a desperation play from Pedro, and Jon draws his card quickly. I think he must have it.
Yeah, he must have it. Going for the Primal Turbo, two Auroras onto the Pumpkaboo. Does he have the Serena? Yes, he does. Brings up Lugia, and Jon Eng will advance into top 4.
Jon